Welcome back to BLOCKTV, and you're watching Trader's Take, where we get to break down the crypto charts. And on a day like today, where currently everything is red across the board, we turn to BLOCKTV's technical analyst, Joe Saz, in New York to break things down for us. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, aside for, like I said, everything is red across the board. We've gone from pretty much close to 12, and now I'm looking at CoinMarketCap right now, and we are below 11. We're at 10.6 right now. Can you tell us what is going on?
Yeah, well, this is, a number of days ago we spoke about, manipulation covering, say, the first chunk of this run, and what's going to happen now that it's possible that manipulation, at least done by Tether, in my opinion, has come to an end. Well, I think what's happening is we're now experiencing organic market activity on a little more of a high scale versus earlier. So, all right, let me just jump into the charts because I feel like I'm just better with charts.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you could see how we're a little more organically falling off these cliffs. Instead of just having one gigantic red, candle, that's a very coordinated move, like something like this. We're starting to see a more organic.
Coordinated as in manipulation?
Yeah, I look at this. I mean, when I see very large price action in a very small time frame, I assume coordinated. Now, that could mean one of two things. That can be one gigantic accumulator who is selling, or a group of people who have pulled their Bitcoin together and.
And what's your theory, Joe?
It's one of those two things. I don't really distinguish a difference between the two. I just say that to me is orchestrated versus organic, inorganic versus organic market activity. A gigantic red candle, is just, or a gigantic green candle, it just reeks of coordination, of single actor or group coordinated effort. So when I see stuff like what we're experiencing now, which is falling off that cliff that I was talking about, just like a slope and then bam, we're down. No support, we're breaking down, there's no buyers, bam, even further. And this is part of the problem, right? Because this is going to add to what's going on. When we look at Bitcoin dominance and we see it growing relative to the altcoin market cap decreasing, well, that's a big part of probably where this money is coming from. And so if all this money that was already in the space is pulling into Bitcoin, then if there is a downside price move, everyone's going to panic, and the panics are going to be a little more volatile. And in this particular case, to the downside, we fell right through 11 into 10.5 and below. We got as low as, back to the charts here, just in a very short period of time. And this is with, in my opinion, organic market activity. We went from 11.5 to around 10.3. So that's a $1,000 price swing, and this looks organic. Now that should be begging the question: where's the money coming from? To buy Bitcoin. We obviously know where the Bitcoin's coming from to sell, and that's my assumption is the organic market space, traders, not hodlers, but traders tend to define the price of an asset across the board. That's stocks, gold, etc. So what we have is organic market moves to the downside, and we have a big lingering question: where is the money, right? So if it's all out of the altcoins, the last bit of dominance we have in altcoins is a hodl movement for any one of these pieces of trash, or people that are just stubborn, people that bought in and are in the red but not ready to capitulate. We have a couple different categories there, right? So we have a little bit of dominance left in the entire altcoin space, and then we have 70% Bitcoin. So is 30% more money in the total crypto market cap going to move into Bitcoin? Maybe not overnight. But what we do have is an idea of where this money was coming from on the organic front. We have an idea that it was also potentially money that left the market end of year 2018, entered the market 2019. So I think there's a couple sources of money there, of money that was in the ecosystem, but maybe sitting outside of Bitcoin, right? And now that Bitcoin is tanking, I think everything's going to be looking terrible. So that's what's going on right now in my eyes. What I see is organic moves to the downside. This was not something that was completely unexpected. I've been talking about this for a week and a half or so now, and I do believe that we're in for a bit of a wild ride. But again, keep in mind that if the money is only coming from the ecosystem into the ecosystem, like from one asset in the ecosystem to another one, that doesn't mean that's fresh money coming in, and there are no hardcore bulls, from any external area like SEC, ETF area, or hedge fund area, or even massive single accumulators like a billionaire like Warren Buffett that is like, you know what, I'm going to hedge my bet with some of my $120 billion sitting in a bank account, and I'm gonna buy some Bitcoin right now. No, we have none of that going on. There's no new money entering the space. Google Trends is probably my biggest bit of proof to land that. We have Mike Dudas, who presented an argument that China is not accumulating Bitcoin. So even though Google Trends excludes China, we now have some concrete evidence that China is still not driving this upside move. So we kind of combine Google Trends relative to 2017 run-up, which looks extremely pathetic, relative to that run-up, and we have nothing coming in from China. Well, that just goes to show you that there's a very strong possibility that my theory has been correct this entire time, and now we're in the final chapter of what could be the crash. And I think there's two possibilities there. Was their goal to try to push the market up and keep it up, or was their goal to push the market up and exit when they were done, and then let the market organically do its thing? And if it's the first case, then obviously things will continue to look bullish. And I don't really see that yet. There's one bullish case scenario that I've noticed on the daily, and that is if we can turn this move underneath the 50 MA. Like the second we broke and closed below this 50 MA, I assumed we would be doing something like this. All right, so we're going to be spending a little bit of time down here, but there's a slight possibility that this goes straight up, hammer, and then we bounce right out, and we're done with the 50 MA for a while. But it is starting to trend down. We're starting to cool off on this run, and I think with those other factors that I was just mentioning, the fact that money has been coming from within the ecosystem, but other assets, and pushing Bitcoin up to keep whatever organic activity left alive. When that is done, we're going to be looking at volatile swings to the downside. So my shorts are open. My shorts are very happy right now, and I'm not really planning on closing them out just yet. There's really nothing that I see that's really going to instigate a bullish swing at this point in time.
Right, it's kind of like, as you were saying before when you were mentioning China, that was a big theory just a couple of weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago. People were thinking that that's where the money is coming from, and you did mention, you've been mentioning for weeks, whale manipulation being a potential. So right now, when you're saying we could potentially be looking at an upside with organic movement, that's kind of speculation, just because this market is so unpredictable. You don't know which whale is going to come in at this point and potentially affect it. Correct?
Yeah, it's like like my bullishness has like that cringy emoji. You know what I mean? Like that straight
Absolutely.
teeth kind of. Like it's like we're like, if there is some sort of play to the upside, in my opinion, it's only going to be to wipe out shorts. And if that's the case, then we're going to be looking bumpy. It's going to be wild, and it might even go. We might even head back to a no trade zone. But right now things are looking bearish, and we have organic activity causing these slumps, and this slow build and then a fall off a cliff, a settle and then a fall off a cliff, and we've been supported by 10.2, which is like nothing, right? I mean, now we have 9,000 right back on the table. We're sitting at 10.6, which really is insignificant of a range. I watched us as we were breaking through the 10.5 range. There was a little bit of a valiant effort on the bulls side to hold that zone, but it just completely got decimated. And then we moved down to 10.2. I mean, we're looking at volatile swings to the downside right now, much more so than volatile swings to the upside. I just don't see traders, assuming that this is all traders, which is what I assume. Traders aren't going to, say they sell at 11.4, or more importantly, let's say they sold at 10.2. They're not going to buy back in right now. They're going to just keep getting chopped up. So many traders are going to rage quit and walk away, and at least temporarily. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I had to do the same thing. I got so caught up in all this up and down that it was like, all right, I need to walk away. I was on a hot streak, and then I lost some money, and it's like, you know what? When you lose some money, you got to walk away because you get emotional. So, right. Or when you make money.
And then, so, I mean, as we know with Bitcoin, when Bitcoin goes down, the rest of the crypto market goes down with it. Can we look at a few other coins now, for perhaps Ethereum that's also kind of tanking currently?
Yeah, let's run through the list here. All right, so we're gonna look at both Ethereum and relative to U.S. dollar and Bitcoin. Right now, we're looking pretty bad. This is what is obviously a local high, lower high, and now we're fighting this this kind of support area. Now, this support area is meeting up with the 200 moving average, and I believe that we will have some support here, but keep in mind, anything like that I'm saying right now on a technical level, all these things, there were so many technical rules that were broken on the way up. So I'm going to assume that the support that we might have is not going to be as strong as it typically would be. Because think about it like this: when you have a parabolic move to the upside, what support is psychological acceptance of a price, right? So if you have this steep upside move, and that's just a FOMO trend, right? And then you have no support areas where it was like, well, we in Bitcoin, let's just say, or we sat at 5,800 for 3 weeks, and then we popped to 10K, and then 5,800 is really good support because we sat there for so long. We had so many buyers willing to buy at that price that I would have to assume as a trader that we have more buyers willing to buy at that price. I'm not going to assume that for 3 weeks after sitting in a price range, that price range is just going to be decimated overnight, right? So that's basically why parabolic run-ups are so dangerous, is because on the way up, you kill any liquidity on the sell side, and always on the sell side, liquidity is always going to be theoretical. It's always going to be what someone is willing to sell for. On the buy side with Bitcoin, you have hope. And hope means that people are willing to buy Bitcoin at any price. That includes $20,000, right? So we have a lot of strong support, and resistance moves to whatever tide support allows it. And if sellers start to feel like this is the end of the run, then they're going to start getting aggressive. They're going to start just selling. And that includes whales, that includes plebs, that includes nobody and everybody. You know what I'm saying? That includes
right, but then based on what you're saying right now with support and your explanation there, for example, just taking Ethereum, just because we were just speaking about it. Ethereum has been at $200 and has not gone below that for quite a while now. Would you consider that solid support?
Well, if you notice, we didn't really sit at $200. We blew through it right here, right? It was previously a little bit of action over here, a little bit of support, but I'm talking in this run-up, and because I like to compare what's going on to the local timeline instead of like all-time kind of thing, especially in crypto, which is so violent and volatile. You could see that when we broke through 200, it was immediate. Now we were supported in this area because it's probably a nice round number. Now, and that's probably the same reason why you see a couple wicks poking at it and breaking through it, and then resistance, because round numbers, especially in the thousands, hundreds, and 50s and 10s in crypto, less so 10s, but more hundreds and thousands. Those are big areas. So I see that more as like a convenience thing. But we haven't been sitting at 200. We've been sitting in the 200 range and plus, right? But coming back down, it's just we shredded 200 on the way up. We now have a little bit of support in this vicinity, but I just don't know. Right now, with Bitcoin looking as bearish as it is and the volatile swings to the downside, 200 can just get wiped out easily. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be a bug on a windshield. But let's take a quick look also at ETH relative to BTC, because this is going to be what's important. So we do see a decrease in Bitcoin value and an increase in Ethereum value. Now, on the daily, we did hit a 9 buy. It was slightly ignored. So basically, anyone who bought on this sequential indicator is maybe breaking even about now. We're gonna have to wait and see. But Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin having a steep move to the downside, and an altcoin moving up is kind of an interesting thing. I have a feeling this isn't going to be the wider trend. There might be a couple assets that move like this, but I don't believe this is going to be the wider trend. And on that note, let's take a quick look at Litecoin. Right now, we're on Litecoin US dollar. We just completely, this nine buy kicked any trader in the face right now. We're sitting on support at the 200 moving average. We're also sitting at a bearish crossover of the short and intermediate term moving averages, in this case, the 50 and 125. So we have an impending death cross. We're sitting on the 200 moving average, which is slightly bullish. I want to see if we even have a wick that goes anywhere below this. So we fought the 200 moving average, and right now the 200 is barely winning, like by a thread, as you can see. So it's kind of iffy. What's going to happen? We have a bearish crossover here. It's possible we have a small bounce in Litecoin, but I'm very neutral. This makes me neutral. I'm not very happy with what I see here. Let's say I'm neutral bearish, but let's take a quick look at Litecoin relative to BTC reported by Binance. So here's a good case. Bitcoin takes a big tumble, and there seems to have been a small upside move, and it was immediately reversed. We're now sitting on an inverted doji, a gravestone doji type formation right here, which is going to mean that there's potential move to the downside coming out of this. Now, it all depends on the daily close candle, in my opinion. Again, if traders are the ones defining the space, then traders are going to be looking for technical indicators. Geometric patterns, candlestick patterns, and obviously indicators. And it just depends. There are so many indicators and so many different things that you have to kind of make a lot of assumptions here. And right now, I'm going to assume that candlesticks are fundamental, right? So we're going to assume that a lot of traders are going to be pulling back to their fundamentals, especially in a volatile emotional time. And we're probably looking at if this daily candle closes looking like this, we're probably going to see continued downside price relative to Bitcoin. So yeah, let's see how this candle holds. Onto XRP, looking pretty bad. This is kind of not what you want to see. You don't want to see us be. I often say support like this is like skipping a stone across water, where as strong as anyone is, they can't skip a stone across water forever. And we've been skipping across this area for so long, we're probably going to plunge beneath it. Now, the argument could be that if we bounce out of that area, then we have a very strong support area, and that kind of works with what I was describing earlier about long-standing support versus a parabolic uptrend. XRP now has long-standing support here, and the question is this a stone skipping across the water and it's going to plunge, or are we going to bounce the heck out of here? We have external narratives that should have, in my opinion, driven the price a bit higher in things like XRP, but that just goes to tell me that the only people in the space are hodlers and people willing to accumulate to hodl. This isn't even really trade-like activity, right? So, back to XRP, US dollar, we're looking pretty bearish here. We definitely have a low here, and we're appearing to have a body that is potentially willing to close below a lot of these wicks and definitely below a lot of these bodies. So it's very possible that if we get a body that closes around this area or lower, that this setup trend line, this green line that's been support for months, is in jeopardy. And once that breaks, I think anything to the downside is on the table. Do we want to take a quick look at XRP relative to Bitcoin as well?
Yes, please.
Cool. All right. This is always interesting to me to see how everything's reacting. This is, I think, particularly important right now because Bitcoin just took that tumble. All right, so we look very similar to how we look with Litecoin. Inverted hammer, sequentially speaking, nothing really significant other than we had a 9 buy, and this is a 1 to 4 candle pullback. If this flips to a 5, then that'll probably be looking bullish until short-term, very short-term bullish. But right now with Bitcoin taking let's look at Bitcoin on a daily. We're 3 days into downside moves, 4%, 2%. So back to XRP. Let's see, here's XRP, Bitcoin. So, we have had about 3 days of upside moves, which, is kind of interesting. But looks like we're capping out in the altcoins. I'm curious to see where this leads us, but this is, according to sequential, for now, this is just a pullback, nothing more. We're sitting on an inverted hammer, which makes me bearish. We're on the 4th candle, which makes me neutral. And we're probably going to keep moving down. But that's
with
XRP.
You think XRP is going to, that's interesting because, we do continuously talk about how they're kind of manufacturing these partnerships. But still to see kind of where it's going is fascinating a bit because it does prove that even though there's this XRP army, that perhaps they're not that put together as we would tend to think. I think it's you who said it perfectly the other day. You said MoneyGram was last week's news, and this week nothing much is happening there. Definitely something to keep an eye out. Thank you very much, Joe Saz, BLOCKTV's analyst, for breaking those charts down for us. For all you folks out there, keep watching BLOCKTV.com for more cryptocurrency and blockchain-related news.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.